The cost of war, families and homes torn to shreds, and a big pissed-off lizard. Godzilla Minus One has it all. Here's a breakdown of the ending of Toho's fantastic kaiju blockbuster. Like the original 1954 film, Godzilla Minus One is a war movie, even though it mostly takes place after the end of World War II. In the opening scene, we meet Koichi Shikishima, a Japanese kamikaze pilot who abandons his squadron under false pretenses of mechanical trouble. He lands at the airbase on Odo Island, fearing that the other soldiers will condemn him as a coward. However, the commander of the base actually supports him, saying that it's foolish to die when Japan seems destined to lose the war. That night, the entire base is wiped out by Godzilla. Koichi has a chance to shoot the monster, but he panics, leaving him and mechanic Tachibana as the only survivors. Scorned by Tachibana for his cowardice, Koichi returns home after the war to find his Tokyo neighborhood decimated by American bombings. In the rubble, he meets Noriko, a young woman caring for an orphan baby named Akiko. The three form a kind of family, while Koichi gets a job dismantling mines off the coast of Japan. In a montage, we see that Godzilla is mutated by the nuclear weapons test at Bikini Atoll and begins attacking US ships. He eventually reaches Japan, where he destroys more ships and lays waste to Tokyo's Ginza district, seemingly killing Noriko in the process. Devastated, Koichi joins a civilian effort to kill the beast, volunteering to serve as bait while flying an untested experimental aircraft from the war. Because the Japanese military was disarmed following World War II, there's very little to stop Godzilla's rampage. In the absence of armed force, Dr. Kenji Noda devises a complex plan to defeat the beast. He intends to lure Godzilla out into a deep area of water, wrap him up in cables laced with Freon tanks, and use them to drop the monster 1,500 meters down. If the rapid change in pressure doesn't kill him, flotation devices will be deployed to bring Godzilla back up to the surface, further wreaking havoc on his body. As Noda helps organize the civilian navy, mostly consisting of former soldiers, to man the necessary ships, Koichi enlists Tachibana to modify his Shinden fighter plane. If all else fails, he plans to fly into Godzilla's jaws, hopefully destroying his brain and killing him with a mouthful of explosives. None of this makes Godzilla any happier. The plan plays out smoothly, with Koichi and his plane leading Godzilla out to the target location. The Freon canisters fail to do the job, though, and the kaiju chews through the flotation devices at 800 meters when they pull him back up. All seems lost, but in the hour of despair, a whole fleet of tugboats arrives to help yank the monster to the surface. Dr. Noda and the other older men take the responsibility for the attack on Godzilla upon themselves. All survivors of the war, they see the beast as a remnant of that violence left unfinished. Though the young Shiro wants to come with them, they order him to stay behind. Of course, it's Shiro who leads the tugboat charge. The dedication of the former soldiers, while well placed, isn't enough to fully defeat Godzilla. It's no accident that they require assistance from the useless, as Shiro calls them, those who never fought in the war, to literally pull them out. For Japan to move on and properly begin rebuilding, the movie seems to say it will take a combined effort from the survivors and those who represent the future. Right as a kaiju is charging up his atomic heat ray, Koichi flies into Godzilla's mouth and detonates the payload. Koichi survives, having used the ejector seat to jump to safety. In a happy twist, Koichi returns home to a telegram revealing that Noriko is actually still alive. The chaos in the Ginza attack left many victims injured and lost, with no way to identify them. It seems that this fate also befell Noriko, who sustained wounds from Godzilla's heat ray blast but survived after being taken to a hospital. Koichi rushes to her bedside with Akiko in his arms, and the family is reunited. Noriko asks if Koichi's war is finally over, and he breaks down crying, clutching her to his body and declaring that yes, it finally is. Of course, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. As the happy reunion fades out, the camera shifts suspiciously to Noriko's neck, where the faintest sign of something dark can be seen undulating beneath the skin. This could simply be some kind of ordinary radiation poisoning, but with Godzilla still being an unknown quantity in this incarnation, it could also be a sign of something more sinister. Perhaps Noriko is exposed to some kind of Godzilla DNA, or G-cells, as they've often been called in previous movies. Such an infection might have even helped her survive her injuries. For now, though, there's too little evidence to say for certain what's happening to her. Hopefully, the little family has weathered enough tragedies. When it comes to Godzilla, of course, the threat is never really gone. The final shot at the end of Godzilla Minus One is an ominous one. The camera jumps to the depths of the sea, where a molted chunk of Godzilla's body begins to regenerate. On its own, the shot doesn't necessarily mean that a sequel is coming. In fact, it's pretty common for Godzilla films to end with a promise of the monster's return. There will always be another Godzilla film, be it a direct sequel or yet another reboot, and one of the kaiju's defining traits is that he never stays down for long. Still, given the critical success of Godzilla Minus One and its widespread US release, it could also become the first Toho entry in 2 decades to get a proper sequel. The dominant message of Godzilla Minus One is clear: living is the real victory. Any supposed accomplishment that necessitates death, any great sacrifice in the name of fame, honor, or fortune, pales in comparison to the simple victory of living to build anew. For most of the movie, Koichi is racked by guilt, calling himself someone who wasn't supposed to live. He goes to great lengths to bring in Tachibana to fix the Shinden because he wants absolution. He wants to look the man who called him a coward in the eyes and declare that he's willing to die this time. But after Koichi flies the Shinden into Godzilla, we see Tachibana listening at the radio with bated breath. Only when he hears that Koichi is still alive does he exhale. His own war seems to have been ended by the act of forgiveness and the choice to live. In fact, not a single human dies during the final attack against Godzilla. A decoy destroyer is blown up, but every other craft remains intact. Unlike the war, it's not a battle to the death, it's a battle for life and for the future. In his best films, Godzilla has always been a symbol, most frequently a walking embodiment of the destructive power of nuclear weapons, or an avatar for the punishment Japan received after World War II. That's certainly part of his characterization in Minus One, but the film makes the King of the Monsters more complicated than that. Writer-director Takashi Yamazaki recently told Vulture, "Godzilla is more of an undiscerning god. In Japan, it's integrated into Shinto belief. All of these negative things in the world have manifested themselves into Godzilla. And us as humans, we're not out to kill Godzilla, but we're able to calm Godzilla and bring ourselves back to peace." The kaiju is arguably at its most terrifying ever in Minus One, with a heat ray that detonates like a nuclear warhead and a roar that follows every brutal attack. Godzilla doesn't just seem angry at humanity, he seems angry at simply being alive. It's a rage that reflects Koichi's own survivor's guilt, a feeling of discomfort with the gift of life. It's not just the atomic bomb that has summoned the monster in this version of the story, but the combined grief, anger, violence, and shame that those who escaped the war are left with. Defeating Godzilla means putting those things to rest and finally choosing to live for the future. That's why the former soldiers need the younger generation to help them win in the end, and it's the reason that the true victory for Koichi means surviving his final attack. The emotional core of Godzilla Minus One is a unique family dynamic between Koichi, Noriko, and Akiko. They first meet by sheer happenstance, and Koichi quickly learns that Akiko isn't even Noriko's baby, just the child of a dying woman who asked Noriko to take care of her. Then Sumiko jumps in and is sort of a surrogate aunt or grandmother. It's a family that would have never been formed had any of the adults simply chosen to act selfishly. But the result is a happy, stable home, albeit one still haunted by Koichi's lingering trauma. By the end of Godzilla Minus One, Koichi finally puts those demons to rest. This strange foursome seems indicative of the larger reconstruction movement shown throughout the film. Pretty much everyone we meet in the movie lost someone in the war, and yet faced with what feels like insurmountable grief, they build a new community and push forward. In a mid-movie montage, we see the bombed-out house where Koichi's family once lived, slowly rebuilt. It's this defiance in the face of devastation, this passion for a better future, that helps these characters make it through. Writer-director Takashi Yamazaki has spoken extensively about his goals for Godzilla Minus One and the films that inspired it. He told MoviePhone regarding past Godzilla films, "Sometimes a story is told where you switch to Godzilla and then you switch to the human story, and they end up kind of existing independently. But I really wanted to make sure that they were intertwined in a balanced way, so that the human drama and whatever's going on with Godzilla had the right balance." Asked about the lasting impact of Godzilla, Yamazaki explained his perspective on what the creature represents culturally, saying, "It's a concept of an animal or object absorbing so much evil energy or the negativity of the world that it takes shape. This needs a cycle every couple of decades. I think maybe it's just the timing that we need to be reminded and go through the exercise of visualizing your worries, evils, and whatever's going on in the world."
Nothing can save the city now.
The ending of Godzilla Minus One practically begs for a sequel, and with all the praise that the human characters in the movie have gotten from critics and viewers, it would be great to see the cast return for a follow-up. But how likely is that? Toho hasn't made a proper live-action sequel to a Godzilla movie since 2003, when Godzilla Tokyo SOS followed up the story of the previous year's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Only 3 live-action Godzilla films have been released by Toho since then: 2004's Godzilla Final Wars, 2016's Shin Godzilla, and now Minus One. Each of those projects acts as an independent story with no shared continuity between them. In short, Toho has been stingier than ever over the last 2 decades when it comes to the King of the Monsters. That makes the chances of a Minus One sequel look slim, but there is hope. Thanks in part to the success of Legendary's MonsterVerse films, Godzilla has had somewhat of an international resurgence. And with Minus One receiving a wide release in North America, Toho could be testing the waters for more frequent productions going forward. It's all up in the air for now, but even if no sequel arrives, Godzilla Minus One has gifted fans with one of the greatest kaiju movies ever, and one of the best films of 2023.